No matter how great your text is, people always seem to notice the images first. In this chapter, you'll get an introduction to web graphics, learn how to optimize images in Photoshop, and discover the advantages of Dreamweaver's new Smart Objects. If you're familiar with Adobe Photoshop, I'm sure you've immediately recognized that that's the program I have open on the screen now. If not, and you're wondering why this looks so different, this isn't Dreamweaver. This is Adobe Photoshop CS4. And I'm going to use this program just briefly in this one chapter because I think it's so important for you to understand the basics of web graphics. This is a Dreamweaver Essentials training, but I find because images are so fundamental to web design that having at least a basic understanding of how you optimize images for the web and the formats that you can use in web design is really a crucial step that's worth including. If you don't have Photoshop, don't worry. What I'm going to show you here can be done in a number of different programs, so you can just sit back and watch what I do instead of following along. If you have Photoshop Elements, which is sort of the light version of Photoshop, you can also use that program. And if you have Fireworks, that program will also work. The few image features that I'm going to show in this chapter are included in those programs as well. So let's start by opening a graphic. I've included some files you can use. These are in your project files in Chapter 4 in a folder called Graphics, and I want you to open the butterfly image. Now this is a very big, very high resolution image, the kind of image you'd get if you took it with an 8 megapixel or higher camera at a high resolution setting. This is actually a 10 megabyte file, and definitely not what you want to put on your web page, even though it's already in the JPEG format, which is ideally suited to photographs like this. So the first thing you probably want to do when you're working with an image like this is any editing, any manipulation of the image, you want to do at the highest resolution. Once you've got the image the way you want it, it's time to reduce the size, reduce the resolution, and save it for the web. So let's take a quick look at the image size options. Now notice this image has a width of 1,530 pixels, which is a lot wider than you'd probably want on a website. So we're definitely going to want to reduce the physical size of this image. But it also has a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. Now, if you wanted to print this image, that would be an ideal setting for printing. But for the internet, that's really unnecessarily high, and it's adding a lot of size to this image as a result. When you're designing images for the web, there's really no reason to use a resolution higher than about 72 pixels per inch. And that has to do with the way computer monitors work. Computer monitors don't display more than 72 pixels per inch. So an image at a higher resolution and a lower resolution will look about the same on your computer monitor, but at the higher resolution, it's a much bigger file size, and therefore it will take much longer to download to the user's computer. So the first thing I'll do as I'm preparing this for the web is turn off resampling and change it to 72 pixels per inch. Now notice my width did not change, but now the pixels per inch is different. Now I want to change the width. This is the physical dimension. And I'm going to make this about 400 pixels wide. Again, if you're not familiar with image programs, make sure you have constrained proportions checked to change the height automatically as you change the width. So I've changed the physical image settings, and you see immediately this image is much smaller on the screen. If I double-click on the zoom tool now, it'll go to 100%. I can actually see what it looks like. And once you've reduced the size of an image, it's really good practice almost always to do just a little bit of sharpening. So I like the Smart Sharpen tool in Photoshop. You probably don't need that much sharpening. Once you've optimized an image, it doesn't take much to get it sharper. So maybe around 50 and 0.5. It's probably enough to just make it look a little sharper on the screen after you've reduced the image.